Within, in his mindscape, Paul knowing it was his fault to blame, thinking about the wedding, thinking about why the young Madison so desperately wanted him to have sex with her inside her music studio, in the restroom at work, taking a good look at himself in the mirror, slapping some water on his face. Paul telling his thoughts, one of the thoughts saying, "What did Madison see in me?" Asking himself. Not seeing himself as a woman magnet to anyone. He just felt he could not understand why Madison was so eager to have sex with him. From inside Paul's mind, he felt hurt, feeling the sting of Veronica and him ending that time ago. Was Madison the replacement for Veronica? The question pondering to himself. At the wedding, holding Colleen close to him, he felt something special. Something special, as if that was the change. This was the change he had needed. Making his head hurt from all these pondering questions, asking himself. Do not feel down on yourself, Paul, pleading with his thoughts, looking back at the mirror, staring before him. Stanley had been admitted out of the hospital 2 days earlier. He was there for 76 hours after being picked up at Evelyn's wedding, making a scene. Brendan riding in the ambulance with him to the hospital. When Stanley got sober, thanks to the hospital having him watched over for suicide watch, he woke up in and out, coming to, seeing Brendan sitting in the chair, Brendan half asleep, noticing his friend was waking up. The second night at the hospital, Stanley tried to escape the hospital. Brendan had no choice but to have him strapped up to a gurney for safety concerns. By the third day, screaming and anger flowed through Stanley's words, yelling at the doctors, yelling at Brendan as well. Putting Stanley on medication to help him out with his nerves. Stanley was not happy at all. I mean, he was really pissed off. Really pissed. From being put in this hospital. Brendan explaining all this to Paul when sitting with him, telling him the details, being discreet when speaking the whole thing to Paul. Are you here because you wanted to talk to me about what's been happening to Stanley? Paul seeing he had been being rude when asking this to Brendan, taking back what he said. I mean to say, is Stanley going to be okay? Paul worried about his friend. Yes, he's going to be okay. The few times I've checked up on him, Brendan saying. The fourth day I checked up on him, it had to be about 48 hours later. I realized something was not right, from just the feeling I felt, you know? Evelyn and her new husband were off to New York for their honeymoon. Did you know that? Nodding a no, not knowing where the honeymoon was, acting like he did not care anyways. Well, they came back yesterday, and Stanley decided to come back to work too. Oh shit, Paul telling himself. What happened? Because I left early yesterday. What happened? Well, let me start off. It did not go good. Evelyn's husband works out of Building 3. Did you know? I never knew he worked here in one of the 3 buildings. Paul beginning to understand the situation. Husband and wife working close to each other, but in 2 different buildings, because rules and regulations wouldn't allow for them to be in the same building. Take me and Sue. If me and her get married someday, one of us would have to change buildings, as an example, Paul. Brendan explaining also how some people who were guests at the wedding, the ones that knew of Stanley, they did not talk about what happened there, with the chaotic scene, with the blood dress, and Stanley being drunk and stupid there. The ones who knew Stanley knew he had it really bad for Evelyn, and everyone just let it go, and nobody brought it up ever again. Nobody even whispering it from the break room. If someone who was at the wedding, the 2 people did not want to talk about it. Talking about in the work area. The other people at work who did not know Stanley, but they did attend the wedding. Seeing Stanley, the few people asked fellow friends on why the man who caused a scene at the wedding was back at work. The people not even knowing he worked there, because Stanley had kept his profile low. In the break room, people who did not know Stanley, but the ones who had known Evelyn, when seeing her, they would ask her about Stanley. She would say, I don't know what you're talking about," pretending Stanley did not exist to her, saying this constantly for a few days to people in the break room. People finally stopped asking Evelyn about Stanley. Paul and Brendan knew Evelyn was a bit cruel from leading Stanley on, talking about the past. They both agreed, though, Stanley took it to heart more than how Evelyn saw their relationship as. Brendan coming up with a theory later in the day, the two at a coffee house, Brendan explaining maybe Stanley thought that she was really into him. Maybe she just wanted to hook up and then move on to another guy. That would seem easy to do, but she never hooked up with Stanley, Paul saying sadly about the situation. Stanley told me she never gave it up to him. Instead, she just teased him, while at the same time, she liked to make him jealous by dating other men, while dating Stanley. Do you know for sure if this is true? Brendan wanting clarity. Paul explaining to Brendan how Stanley and him had many conversations at nighttime over the phone, where Stanley would pour his heart to Paul, hiding it away from the others. Stanley was just a lovesick fool, Brendan. This is all that our friend was. He was a lovesick puppy, while Evelyn fucked everything else, but never fucking him, Paul saying bluntly. I heard once in the break room, Evelyn was fucking some guy, and when the guy left her hanging, she decided to get with Stanley, messing his mind up and all, just to see if the other guy would fuck her again. You think she's a hoe? Paul asking Brendan. I do not know, and nor do I care, Brendan replying. Love is a crappy game. You, directing at Paul, Brendan. You should know this very, very well, my friend. I do, Paul laughing. I do know how love can be a terrible thing if it goes wrong. Changing the subject, Brendan asks, what happened with Colleen? It's been a couple of weeks since the wedding, and you never talk about her. What happened? I remember you two were going to go to dinner, and something else, Brendan prying. Nope, nothing of the sort, Paul saying, feeling defeated. Sorry about something not happening, my friend. Brendan feeling sorry for Paul. It's okay. It was not your fault. It all was my fault, plain and simple. Let me change the subject again, Brendan saying. We lost Brian. Where did he go? Brian got a job closer to home. Friday is his last day of work. This sucks, Paul saying, upset tone-like. Emmett came to the cubicle with some boxes and asked that Paul and Brendan empty out Stanley's belongings, place them in the box, Emmett ending with, Is he fired? Brendan questioning, smiling a bit about it. Emmett saying he could not answer the question because of the HR part to this. Asking again that the belongings of Stanley please put in the box, asking again of the two. The two obligating, next putting what little Stanley had in the boxes. Amber from the downstairs reception area calling Paul on his cell phone. Paul wondering why his cell phone and not just call him through the office phone. You have to come downstairs, Paul, immediately. Amber yelling on the other end, saying he had to go downstairs right away. Brendan and Emmett wondering what was the hurry to all this. What's the matter? Paul seeing tears from Amber. Amber embracing Paul, looking at her face. Tell me, what's wrong? Amber's face looking up to Paul then, calming herself before speaking, looking around, making sure nobody was seeing